for floppy drive connectors. Most motherboards, I don't even know why these days, they also give you floppy drive connectors. Not very useful. Okay. Let me see what else is on the motherboard. Memory, CPU, USB, SATA, PCI Express. There's some standards that I don't even need to talk about, like the AGP, video card standard. I mean, if you set up an i3 or i5, system, there are no APG cards these days, that can even approach the built-in capability of the processor itself. So it's kind of pointless to have those things. That's it. I think that is basically all that you have to consider when you specify a new motherboard. Oh, the network cards. Okay, NICs. Network interface card. Basically, the question is, do you need one or two of those wired Ethernet connectors? That's the question. Yep.
Would the NICs include the Wi-Fi already built in? Would that be
Most mobiles don't have Wi-Fi built in.
Okay.
Most do not. You can easily use your USB to expand your desktop so you can talk to your wireless network. Talking about that, I read an article yesterday that some company is already in the process of designing the next generation of Wi-Fi cards that is capable, at least in theory, of up to 3 gigabits per second transfer. They found a 60 gigahertz band, in the radio frequency band that is currently unused. They look at the bandwidth, which is basically, how much information can you push through that particular band, in the RF frequency. And it is it's exceeding 3 gigabits per second. So all they need now is to design the hardware, the electronics and whatnot, to actually get it accomplished. Okay, so that's kind of neat, because if you think about it, that means using wireless technology, now you have the same bandwidth as the outgoing standard of SATA, which most drives have problem keeping up with. You can push more stuff through the wireless interface than your hard drive can keep up with. Now that's kind of cool. Yep, but that's coming. So the NIC, I think one is good enough for most people, unless you want to set up an internal network of some sort that needs 2 connectors. Okay. Any questions about the NIC thing? Okay. The only thing about having 2 NICs that is nice is you can actually use one PC and use a network to talk to another PC, and that particular share is not visible to anything else. So if you're into configuring and rescuing PCs a lot, this may be something that you have to consider, because if someone brings you a box, let's say an older box, and that person says, I want you to do da 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 da. Okay, back up all the files and then whatnot. Yeah, you can use some other means to back up the files and whatnot, but going through the network card is one of the easiest ways to do it. Okay, and that way, if you have 2 network cards or 2 network ports, that means you have one port to talk to the internet and everything else that you usually do, and then the other one you can use it just to talk to the PC that you're repairing, that you're surfacing and maintaining and whatnot. So that's why some people may need 2, but most people only need 1. Okay. Well, we have the VGA versus what is the new standard? DVI. Well, this is only useful if you are not using a PCI Express video card. But it's still useful. Okay, I like to have the ability to do it. Yep.
What's HDMI?
HDMI is for hooking up to digital TVs.
Yeah.
I think it's a more expensive port. Does that also support audio? Does audio go through that? Okay, so that's why it is nicer. because VGA and DVI, they only support the video part, but HDMI also, according to that, it also supports the audio part. So you have one single connector to go from your PC to your TV, and now not only do you get the image, but you also get the sound at the same time. So it's more convenient. But I believe HDMI cables are more expensive at the same length as these two other type of interfaces. And that's a good point to make. HDMI is now actually supported by many motherboards as well. And how many people have at least considered hooking up your PC to your HD TV? Yep. It kind of goes without saying. It's so easy now. You just get a free 50-inch monitor. Why not?
Can you take like a laptop and a USB port and like hook into the LCD?
You don't even need a USB port. Most laptop computers have at least a VGA port, and you can use a VGA cable to hook up your laptop computer to the VGA port of your HD TV.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Most.
Just like go internet that way through the TV.
It's cool.
You're not
TV like a monitor.
exactly. You're using your TV as a monitor. Yep. You have to kind of sit back a little bit more, depending on the size of your TV. With mine, I don't have to because I have a 26-inch. Yeah, they don't even sell 20. Well, I guess they do, but it's hard to find 26-inch HD TVs these days. They do have it, but they are not usually, popular these days. Okay, that's a good question. Now, if you can choose between VGA and DVI, use DVI. It makes a difference. Okay, if you can choose between DVI and HDMI, use HDMI if you have audio. But as far as the video signal is concerned, DVI is just as good. Okay. Any other questions at this point? No. Yep.
I have a comment. I found a story about a guy who installed 30 USB ports to cook meat using his computer.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's like a kebab thing. It was it's a grill, right? It's a grill type of cooker.
He soldered it to a stove. A portable stove.
Yeah. I think that's a little bit extreme. I wouldn't hook up anything that takes any power from a USB connector. I don't want to kill my PC. Oh, I forgot one thing here. As far as USB devices are concerned, remember we talked about UPS, uninterruptible power supply. Many of those are now intelligent, and they can talk to your PC through USB. Oh, I forgot some other things too. Modems, particularly fax modems. Okay, now the modem part is not useful these days anymore. Because we have broadband access for the most part. But some companies still like people to turn in stuff by fax, and having a fax modem can be very handy. They're only about $10. Okay, if you go onto eBay and look for a fax modem that is voice capable, they're only about $10. So for $10, you enable your PC to send and receive fax when you need to. It also has a voice capability, so your PC can answer the phone for you if you wanted to. If you go out there and look for software, you can even make your PC, turn your PC into a promotional machine and make calls to people and ask them to vote for you or buy your product and whatnot. There are of course laws against that sort of thing. But, I'm just saying that it makes it capable of doing it. Okay. Any questions at this point about how to select or the criteria of selecting a motherboard? Yep.
Do they make a fax modem that's compatible with your cell phone?
No. Are you trying to go through your cell phone to go to the internet? Is your cell phone already internet capable?
Yes.
So what you're looking at is actually what they call tethering. You need a specific software that will make your cell phone share its internet connection with a PC. If you have an iPhone, you probably have to jailbreak it first because Apple does not, or AT&T does not want people to do it. Even with T-Mobile, you have to root your phone first. With an Android phone, you still have to root your phone first, and then you can install, the new software that basically has that ability built into it. But it's not a modem. You're not talking about converting audio signal into digital or vice versa. Okay, which is another reason why you want another USB port, is to use your cell phone in an emergency to go onto the internet. If your broadband is down, how are you going to hook up to the internet? You can go through your cell phone. Okay, any other questions about the motherboard? No questions? Okay, now this is not a part of the specification, but the reliability of a motherboard is a big deal because it hooks up everything. If your motherboard goes, everything else stops working. Okay, it may not kill the other components, but your PC would not be functional at all. Okay, and it's a big hassle to change motherboards. Now, can someone just imagine what you have to go through if your motherboard goes bad, but the processor is still good, memory is still good, everything else is still good? How much trouble do you have to go through to change your motherboard?
You have to unhook everything and hook it back up.
Exactly. So physically, it's a big, huge exercise because you have all these things. Okay, look at all the list here. Some of these are easy because it's at the back panel of the PC. You just kind of unhook it. But many of these are internal, like the fan connector, the SATA connectors. They're all inside. The power connectors, they're all inside. It's one big mess. So when after you unhook everything, you have all these dangling wires everywhere in the PC case, and then you have to extract the CPU out of it, right? Because you want to reuse your CPU. What kind of trouble do you have to go through to remove the CPU? You have to take out the CPU cooler first, okay? The CPU cooler sits on top of the CPU. It has a big fan on it to kind of make it stay cool. And that depends on what kind of CPU cooler you have. The smaller ones are easy to deal with because the pins, the quote unquote pins to hook up to the motherboard, they're usually very accessible. On the other hand, if you have the type that I have, which is called Big Typhoon, that is a big hassle. I mean, I can't even get to the screw connectors unless I slide out the motherboard tray. Okay. Now, you take out the CPU cooler, then what do you find? You find the processor with a lot of thermal paste on it, right? Now, don't ever reuse thermal paste that is on the CPU already, okay? So if you're going to change stuff and you have to take the CPU cooler off of the CPU, always clean up the surfaces on both devices and use fresh and new thermal paste every single time. Okay, it's not worth the risk. Okay, thermal paste is not that expensive. Okay, so now you extract the CPU and then you extract all the RAM, and your motherboard finally has nothing attached to it, right? But what does your motherboard attach to?
Case.
The case. So now you need to get the screwdriver, right, to unscrew the motherboard from the case. And guess what? Here's a new challenge. Sometimes the standoffs of your, okay, let me show you a picture because this takes some explaining. Okay, these, they are also called standoffs. So let's say this is the back, this is the case. Okay, so there's a case here, and this part is actually not the outside of the case. This is actually inside of the case. But anyway, it has a certain metallic plate so they can mount your motherboard onto. But before you mount, you don't glue your motherboard